Good morning. How is everybody today? Thanks for being here. I was hired by Equality New Mexico a year ago this week, and this is just a really cool way to celebrate that 1-year anniversary. So thank you to Julia and Amy and the whole Creative Startups team for inviting me to be here to talk about commitment. I want to thank AJ for coming out and supporting, so go check them out if you want some stickers and some more information about our organization. But I also wanted to thank the city of Albuquerque. Shell, Carlos, and Sophia are all here from the mayor's office. Thank you all for supporting creative economy here in New Mexico. What a breath of fresh air it is, and a jolt to the heart and the soul of Albuquerque to have Tim Keller as our mayor. So let's give the mayor's office a round of applause. Thank you all. So I'm going to talk about commitment, and I hope that I will be able to paint a picture for you of what commitment means to me. Conventional political wisdom says that some sectors of our society simply don't exercise their fundamental rights to civic participation. Voter participation among a community that some of us in politics call the rising American electorate, which is largely young people, people of color, unmarried women. That conventional wisdom says that turnout among those populations although it has increased in recent elections, those people still do not register to vote or turn out in proportion to their share of the larger population. So that group of people is about 60% of the whole population in the United States. Yet that population, we don't turn out in those same numbers. We turn out about 12% less than that. Some sources say that the rising American electorate is going to, the turnout in that population is going to drop about 18% in the 2018 midterm election. But the problem with conventional political wisdom and some polling that we've all seen in recent elections is that the data doesn't give us a whole picture of what the community is. The biggest flaw is that people assume that people don't register to vote and don't turn out to vote because of lack of willingness or desire to participate civically in our society. But the truth is, the electoral system, the system was not built for or by that population. It was not built to empower those people, our people, to turn out to vote. While we're deeply affected by it, it was just simply not built for us. So why would we participate under those circumstances? For me and for many people in our community, the answer is commitment. To us, commitment is an act of love. It's an act of rebellion, resistance. It's an act of, and especially in New Mexico, it's an act of survival. Commitment is the thought that we do care about our communities, and at the same time, we refuse to play a game that is rigged against us. So another flaw in elite political wisdom is the language that we use to talk about civic engagement. How many people here identify as a citizen? So that's a pretty values-loaded term, right? Because of a polarized immigration debate, because of an American legacy of racial trauma and cultural erasure. For many of us, though, being a citizen means a very specific set of actions. That might mean voting. It might be taking part in a community service action. It might be being a member of your neighborhood association, starting a business, creating public art, making donations to a food pantry or your favorite charity. Being a citizen for many of us is a point of pride, and that's why we're all here today. And I'm very much the same way. My career started in youth organizing when I was a founding member of a statewide youth advisory council that worked to get young people involved with decision-making processes that affected them. It was one of the joys of my life to go on to lead that organization and to play a role in young people's lives that somebody played for me. And I want to tell a quick story. We were at a workshop, and we were doing kind of like a fishbowl activity where adults were kind of on the outside and they were allowed to watch and listen and learn from the experiences of young people. They weren't allowed to say anything, and that was one of the one rule. And the activity was to talk about civic identity and to ask young people what it meant to participate in their communities. And so I asked this young man, he was formerly gang involved, and he had become a powerful advocate for people who are returning after serving time behind bars. I asked him what it was like, or if he felt like he was a citizen. And the adults that were watching, it was kind of surprising. There was an audible gasp in the room because some of these people had never thought that a young person would not feel like a citizen. And so I followed that up by asking him what, if anything, does he do to give back to his community, and that answer was also surprising because what his answer was things that you would consider being citizen, but he called himself a resident instead of a citizen. And I found that really interesting, and that's kind of stuck with me because these populations that I'm talking about don't often identify with that term of being a citizen, but they're being good civic actors. We're contributing to our community because we're committed to each other as people, and we're committed to our community and to our land and to our water. So if you ask that question to people who feel disenfranchised, who are disenfranchised by a large system, you're gonna get a similar answer. That you're gonna hear stories about somebody helping the old lady down the street, a young person helping their friend who got in trouble at school, or the young person who is finishing school and while providing for their children. You'll see stories like the young people who organized just about 10,000 people in Old Town Albuquerque to protest gun violence. These are all stories that you would traditionally use to define citizenship, yet these people don't feel like they're citizens. So there's a disconnect between what the larger population, what larger groups of people think of as civic participation, and how some communities think about their own civic action. And we need to commit to bringing these two ideas together. Bringing these ideas into alignment is one of the toughest and most rewarding challenges that people like me who run and work with organizations like Equality New Mexico try to tackle. We are a better society when we are committed to everyone having a voice in crafting the rules of the game. If we're really trying to bring more people into all aspects of the political process and into civic action, we have to welcome people into that, and we have to give them ways to participate that fit them and not us. So this means the inevitable halt to the grind, the inevitable grinding halt to the status quo. Part of the way that we do that is to committing to pulling elections and policy making out of the shadows. The state government, the city government, the nonprofit industrial complex, whatever you want to call it, it's a complex system, and it's hard for many of us, and I'm sure folks who have recently joined the city are relearning or learning that it's a difficult task to work inside these giant systems. We have to help people create a working relationship between themselves and their government and help them think of that relationship as their commitment to their community. when we have a better understanding of how these systems work, we can make better decisions about how to improve it. Democracy is not a spectator sport, but it's hard to play the game when you can't see the field. So, some tangible ways to do that. We have to make elected office more accessible to young people, to women, to working families, to immigrants, to people of color, and other marginalized communities. For too long, these types of positions, appointed and elected, have been given and kind of shepherded to the people who are well connected, the good old boy network, retirees, and the independently wealthy. In order to make our government truly representative, we need to lower the median age of our legislators and elected officials, appointed officials, increase the number of women who serve, elect leaders who maintain other diverse and intersecting identities like race and ethnicity, gender identity, income, sexual orientation, criminal history, and etc. We have to renew our commitment to our community, and as creatives and nonprofit professionals, as governmental employees, as members of this community, our commitment should be to amplify all voices, regardless of their difference. I'm proud to and humbled to wake up every day and work for an organization that has a long history of doing this. EQ&M was founded in 1993. It's our 25th anniversary this year. And during that long history, there have been a number of significant policy wins. In 2003, we passed the Human Rights Act in New Mexico, which is a statewide non-discrimination law that covers sexual identity and gender, sexual orientation and gender identity. That's really important. It's a strong statewide protection for everybody in the state of New Mexico. That same year, we passed the hate crimes law, which protects people of those same identities from hate crimes, or helps to give protections. And then in 2004, the organization organized 20,000 people to fight back a ballot measure that would have repealed those laws. We passed a statewide bullying prevention law that we're working next year to repeal and replace to make better, more comprehensive. And then in 2013 and 14, the organization organized 200 faith leaders and 300 business leaders to come together. And that was the catalyst for the movement that secured marriage equality for the state of New Mexico. So in the state of New Mexico, regardless of what they do at the federal level, we have a strong statewide protection in both non-discrimination and marriage equality. In the 2017 session, Equality New Mexico banned the harmful practice of conversion therapy. And those are kind of the big three policies that the LGBTQ movement has been working for to give protections to all people in our communities, but especially the LGBTQ community. In the next legislative session, we'll be working to pass the Safe Schools for All Students Act. That's a policy that provides a model bullying prevention policy for all school districts across the state that includes gender identity. Many of the school districts across the state now, that protection is not provided for those students. We're going to work to modernize our vital records laws so that people can change their gender identity on their vital records, which is their birth certificate, to reflect their gender. And that's a long list, and there's many more that I could talk about, but that's a list of examples of tangible wins that our organization has been able to have by committing to centering our community and the communities of difference in getting these sustainable policies passed. So I'm extremely proud to be the next generation or the new guard of leadership in the next 25 years of winning equality. It's being committed to the idea that we are all better together and make better decisions when we all contribute. So for me, the kid who grew up in Albuquerque's northeast Heights, right on the border, right on the freeway, on the cusp of the International District. The kid whose dad woke up every morning at the crack of dawn to like literally go break his back building other people's homes. The kid who watched his mom take on APS for being greedy and racist, and she won. The kid who learned and stands on the shoulders of the giants of this community, of my family, of organizing, of culture, of history, for this unabashedly biracial, bisexual Burkino. My civic identity is everything I've just described to you. It means being an accomplice for justice. It's an act of love. It's an act of creativity. It's an act of resistance. It's an act of survival. For me, my civic identity is simply being committed. Thank you.